The dining table was set, candles flickering lightly, casting shadows on the walls. Everyone in the family had gathered. Emma's parents, her two younger sisters, our children, and even my in-laws, all unsuspecting of the storm that was about to hit. I stood at the head of the table, swirling my glass of wine, my expression calm, but my mind raging like an unstoppable fire. Emma sat across from me, clueless about what was coming. She smiled politely, acting as if everything was normal. I returned the smile, but deep inside, I was counting the seconds until her world shattered. "Darling," I said, my voice smooth, yet carrying an edge of coldness. "How about some wine?" Emma's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She shook her head, her voice laced with fake sweetness. "No, dear. I'm trying to lose a few pounds." I chuckled and leaned forward, my eyes boring into hers. "Oh? Or is it because you're taking antibiotics after catching an STD on that last cruise with your 403 sisters?" The room fell into a suffocating silence. Forks clattered against plates. Eyes widened. Gasps rippled through the family. Emma's mother covered her mouth while her father's face turned ashen. Emma's expression morphed from shock to horror. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Just as the weight of my words settled in, my eldest daughter, Lily, turned to me. Her face was pale, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. And then she spoke, her voice trembling. "Daddy, there's something else I need to tell you." Emma's face drained of all color, her usual confidence replaced by sheer panic. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of the table, her voice breaking as she tried to form a sentence. "What? What are you talking about?" she stammered, her eyes darting around the table, searching for support. Her gaze lingered on her parents, but they both avoided her eyes, their expressions a mix of disbelief and shame. I leaned back in my chair, swirling my wine glass with deliberate ease. "Oh, come on, Emma," I said, my tone dripping with mockery. Let's not insult everyone's intelligence here. Should I spell it out for you? You know about the girls' trip you took last month? The one where you conveniently forgot to mention your roommate was a man? Her jaw dropped. "That's not true. You're making this up to humiliate me." I smirked. "Am I? Because I have the texts. I have the receipts. I even have the cruise itinerary where you and your sister stayed in a private couple suite. And let's not forget the little gift you brought back from your lover. Should I name it? Or do you want to tell everyone about your antibiotics prescription?" The air in the room grew heavier with each word I spoke. Emma's younger sisters exchanged uneasy glances, and her mother's hand flew to her chest as if to steady herself. Her father, a proud man who valued family honor above all else, finally broke his silence. "Emma," he said in a low, strained voice, "is this true?" Emma's lips quivered as she tried to muster a defense. "Dad, it's not what it seems. I can explain." I couldn't help but laugh, a cold and bitter sound that echoed in the tense silence. "Oh, please, Emma. Explain it to us. Better yet, explain it to our daughter. Lily, why don't you tell your mother what you were about to say?" Emma whipped her head toward Lily, her expression shifting from panic to desperation. "Lily, sweetheart, don't listen to him. He's trying to turn you against me." But Lily didn't back down. Her face was pale, her eyes red from tears she had clearly shed before. "Mom," she said quietly but firmly, "I saw the text too. I know everything?" Emma froze. her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. For a moment, it seemed as though she might faint. The weight of her lies had finally collapsed on her, and there was no escape. Emma's mother, Margaret, looked like she had been struck by lightning. Her hands clutched the pearls around her neck as she gasped in disbelief. "Emma, please tell me this isn't true," she whispered, her voice trembling. Emma's father, Richard, was a man of few words, but the dark, stormy look in his eyes spoke volumes. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of the table. His jaw clenched so tightly, it looked like he was restraining himself from exploding. He had always been a man of discipline, a man who prided himself on family honor. And now, his own daughter had disgraced their name in the worst possible way. "How could you?" Richard finally said, his voice dangerously low. "How could you bring such shame to this family?" Emma's breath hitched as she turned to him. "Dad, please." "Don't dad me!" he barked, slamming his fist on the table. The impact made the plates and glasses rattle, and for a second, everyone flinched. "You cheated on your husband, on your family, and now you expect us to just sit here and accept it?" Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she frantically looked between her parents. "Mom, please, you understand, don't you? It's not like that. I made a mistake, but—" "A mistake?" Margaret's voice was laced with scorn. She shook her head, disgust evident on her face. "Emma, a mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is misplacing your keys. This," she gestured toward me, toward Lily, toward the shattered remnants of our marriage, "is not a mistake. This is a betrayal, a selfish, deliberate act. And worst of all, you lied about it. Again and again." Emma looked utterly shattered. "I didn't think this would happen," she murmured. "I didn't think I'd get caught." Richard let out a bitter chuckle. "Well, congratulations, Emma. You did. And now you're going to face the consequences." Emma's entire body was trembling as she saw the finality in her father's gaze. "Dad, you're not going to turn your back on me, are you?" Richard exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "I don't have a daughter who would do this." Emma gasped, her knees nearly buckling. "No, no, you don't mean that." Margaret wiped her hands on a napkin, as if trying to rid herself of any connection to Emma. "You always thought you could get away with anything, Emma, but not this time." Emma looked around the table, searching for a single ally. But there were none. Her parents, her sisters, her own daughter, all looked at her with either disappointment or disgust. The room that once held warmth and laughter was now colder than ice. She had lost them. She had lost everything. The room felt like it was closing in on Emma. The weight of the betrayal, the judgment in every pair of eyes fixed on her, it was suffocating. Her chest tightened. Her breathing became shallow, and a dizzying wave of panic crashed over her. No, this isn't happening," she stammered, shaking her head frantically as tears streamed down her face. "You're my family. You're supposed to stand by me." She turned to her mother, desperation clawing at her voice. "Mom, please. You can't just abandon me like this." Margaret's expression remained cold, distant. "You abandoned us, Emma, the moment you decided to betray your husband and disgrace this family." Emma let out a strangled sob, her hands trembling as she reached for her father. "Daddy, I need you." Richard recoiled, his face twisted in disgust. "Don't call me that. The daughter I raised knew the meaning of loyalty, of dignity. You? You're just a stranger to me now. Emma's knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Please, I can fix this. But no one moved to comfort her. No one even spoke. Then, in the thick silence, Lily's voice to Thirk. Can't fix this, Mom. Emma's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face filled with raw fear. Lily, please, baby. I'm not your baby anymore, Lily interrupted, her voice firm but laced with sorrow. You broke our family. And now you have to live with it. Emma's breath hitched, her hands clawing at her chest as if trying to physically hold herself together. Her world was collapsing, and no matter how much she begged, no one was reaching out to save her. The walls felt like they were caving in. The humiliation, the loneliness, it was unbearable. Then, just as she thought it couldn't get worse, I stood up, slowly, deliberately. Emma's breath hitched as she looked up at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. And I spoke. You think this is bad? Oh, Emma, you have no idea what's coming next. Emma was already crumbling under the weight of humiliation, but the worst was yet to come. The room was silent, the air thick with tension. Everyone's eyes shifted toward Lily, my eldest daughter, who had just spoken, her voice steady yet trembling with something deeper. Daddy, there's something else I need to tell you. Emma's head snapped toward Lily, her face pale, her lips parted in shock. Lily, sweetheart, please don't, she whispered, her voice breaking. But Lily ignored her mother's plea and turned to me, eyes filled with unshed tears. Mom's lies, her betrayal, it goes deeper than you know. My grip tightened around the armrest of my chair. What are you talking about, Lily? She took a shaky breath and looked me dead in the eye. Mom tried to turn me against you. She told me you didn't love us, that you were cold, that you would leave us one day. She made me believe she was the victim in this marriage, that she needed someone to love her because you never did. A sharp gasp rippled through the family members. Emma's face twisted in horror. Lily, that's not true. I was trying to... To manipulate me? Lily cut her off, her voice shaking. To justify your affair? To make yourself feel better about what you did? Emma looked around frantically, searching for someone, anyone, to take her side. But no one came to her defense. I felt a lump form in my throat. All this time, while I was working hard to provide for my family, Emma had been poisoning my own daughter against me? Lily's hands clenched into fists. That's not even the worst part, Dad. I braced myself. What do you mean? Lily's gaze darkened. You know how you always said that family should never lie to each other? I nodded slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears. She swallowed hard before dropping the final bombshell. Well, Mom's been lying about more than just the affair. You're not my biological father. For a moment, time stopped. I felt the floor drop from beneath me. My heart pounded against my ribs. My breath caught in my throat. Emma let out a strangled cry. No! Lily, don't! But Lily wasn't done. She always knew. She knew from the beginning, and so did Grandpa. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. My knees weakened, my vision blurred. I turned to Emma, my voice cold and hollow. Is it true? She was trembling, her hands covering her face. I didn't want to lose you, she whimpered. I thought, if you never found out, everything would be okay. Is it true? I repeated, my voice a deadly whisper. Emma sobbed, shaking her head as if denying reality could erase the truth. But it was too late. My whole life, our whole marriage, had been built on a lie. I turned away from her, my heart shattered, but my resolve stronger than ever. Emma had ruined me. Now it was time for me to return the favor. The silence after Lily's revelation was deafening. Everyone in the room was staring at Emma. Her mother, her father, her siblings, each face contorted with a mixture of shock, disgust, and pity. Emma stood there frozen, her hands trembling, her mouth opening and closing, like a fish gasping for air. No, I can explain, she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Explain? You've lied for years. You've cheated. You've manipulated our daughter against me. And now, you want to explain? I turned to everyone present. Emma has spent years pretending to be the perfect wife. But behind my back, she's been sleeping around, plotting, and lying. Even about Lily's paternity. A murmur of shock swept through the room. Emma's father, Robert, looked horrified. Emma, is this true? He asked, his voice trembling. She turned to him, tears streaming down her face. Dad, please, you knew about the affair. You helped me hide it. A collective gasp echoed through the family. Robert went pale, his hands shaking. Emma, I helped you cover a mistake, Nothing about this was a mistake, I roared, cutting him off. You both lied to me. You let me raise a child under false pretenses, while she ran around with other men. Emma was now in full panic mode. Her breathing became erratic, her eyes darting around wildly. She turned to her mother, but the older woman recoiled. How could you do this, Emma? Her mother whispered, shaking her head. To your own daughter? To your own husband? Tears streamed down Emma's face as she turned to Lily. Sweetheart, please. Lily took a step back. You're not my mother anymore, she said coldly. Emma let out a strangled sob, her hands clutching her chest. The realization hit her like a slap. She had lost everyone. And I wasn't done yet. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, unlocked it, and tapped a button. A projector, hidden in the corner of the room, blinked to life. The screen on the wall lit up with pictures, screenshots of Emma's texts with her lovers, hotel booking receipts, and even photos of her cozying up with different men. Emma's face drained of all color. Then came the final blow, a video. The footage showed Emma inside a dimly lit bar, laughing drunkenly with one of her lovers. The man leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Emma giggled and replied, "Oh, my husband? He's a fool. He'll never leave me, no matter what I do." The video ended. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Emma let out a gut-wrenching wail and collapsed to her knees. "Please, stop," she sobbed. I stepped forward and leaned down, my voice ice cold. "No, Emma, you did this to yourself." My ultimate revenge on Emma. Exposing Emma in front of her entire family was just the beginning. I wanted to ensure she suffered the consequences of her actions. Not just emotionally, but socially, financially, and legally. She didn't just betray me. She tried to ruin my life. Now, it was her turn to experience true devastation. Emma thought she could cheat, manipulate, and humiliate me, believing she would never face the consequences. But reality hit her harder than she ever expected. With no job, no money, and no support system, she found herself completely alone. Her lovers, once eager to be with her, disappeared the moment they realized she had tried to pin the pregnancy on me. Even her own parents, disgusted by her deceit, turned their backs on her. The family she once relied on wanted nothing to do with her, and the reputation she had built crumbled in an instant. She had no home to return to, no friends to confide in, and no future to look forward to. The once proud woman who laughed at my trust now struggled to survive, forced to take a low-paying job just to afford the basics. The life she had taken for granted was gone, replaced by a harsh, lonely existence. Meanwhile, I moved on, free from the toxicity she had brought into my life. With my daughter by my side, I embraced a new beginning, filled with peace and happiness. In the end, Emma lost everything she had, and I emerged victorious, stronger than ever.